Carwells, be a star well, going far wells, meet the Carwells. Carwells, be a star well, going far wells, meet the Carwells.
Ding! Welcome back, everyone, to the Superhost Labs podcast. We are the Carwells. I am Sarah.
And I am Emily.
And today we have two of our longest Airbnb co-workers, friends, mentors, and everything in between on with us today. Today we have Steven and Federico with Argest Rentals. Hi, guys.
What's up?
Good morning. Good morning. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. We're super excited to enlighten some people on quality property management and what that looks like and all the nightmares that come along with it. Before we get started, why don't you give us just a little bit of an elevator pitch of who you are, and then we'll kind of get into it.
Hey, guys. I'm Steven, Stevie Stacks from the Live, Let, Thrive podcast. That's how I first met Sarah. And she hopped on our podcast a long time ago. We do a Airbnb podcast, and she came in there and really kicked some ass. And can we say ass?
Yes.
And so I messaged her right after the podcast, and I was like, hey, so you design and you arbitrages, whatever. I want to do an arbitrage, and she went and designed a couple arbitrages for me, like right off the bat. And then, got me into the arbitrage game. And then, so I had mentioned my aspirations to her about starting a Airbnb management company with Federico, my partner in crime. And then after some stuff, well, we're going to get into that in the podcast a little bit, I'm sure. But so she inspired us to get, she lit a fire under us, me and Federico, to get our Airbnb management company up and running, short-term rental management company up and running. And so we've been doing that for over a year now, and got almost 50 units, depending on what day it is. And so, yeah, that's where we're at, the podcast and the management company, Argest Rentals. And let Federico say some stuff.
Yeah, so I think you covered the basics. We both love the hospitality industry. We met working in the airline industry, so we always loved traveling. That's how we met. The first time we met with Steve is because he wanted to host other people from the same company. So we created kind of a couch surfing experience for people working in the same place. When traveling around with the travel benefits of working at an airline. So yeah, like 7 years ago, I was in the DFW area for work. We went to have some chicken wings, some beer. Yeah, and we've been friends for a long time. He was on the Airbnb business, hosting us at his houses. And on my side, a few years ago, I live in a very touristy area in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. So I put my other room in Airbnb. You know how it got started, Airbnb, renting your extra room and getting some people here, made some friends. And COVID hit, spending a lot of time at home, and it's like, okay, what else can I do? I have a lot of free time. I know that's the crazy thing. You can do a lot of this of the Airbnb part. You can do it remotely if you can create your systems and your teams and your boots on the ground. And got started with Airbnb like professionally, and we built this big monster, this Argest Rentals that people love.
That was a long elevator ride.
No, but it was so good, and it's exciting already. Like, not even getting into the podcast yet, I'm like, we've just come so far. It's so beautiful. Well, as always, we start the podcast with an Airbnb horror story, and we have people submit a bunch of them, but we always like to ask our guests if you have a overarching horrible Airbnb horror story. Why don't you share that? Let us hear it.
Which one? I mean, we can choose. Which one you think, Steve? I think the Arlington house is the recent one.
The Arlington house?
Yeah. I mean, it got better, but, that one, it was a rough start over there.
Yeah, that was a kind of a horror story. Everything kind of went wrong. It was kind of... It's all right. I think people want something more interesting. We think. I
Yeah.
got one. I got one.
Okay.
What one time we have it was over there in Dallas, some of the up and coming area. You know what I'm saying, the ghetto area. And so we had some guests, a man and a woman, check in to one of our units. And they were, I noticed in the middle of the night, like, I was asleep, but my wife told me the next day that the neighbor, this little blondie, she kept knocking on the door all night. Every time she passed by, knocking on the door, pounding on the door. And then I guess finally she got the attention of these of these people in there, and you see him open the door, and you see an exchange. I didn't hear nothing yet, right? And so you see the exchange, and then the girl's like, oh, it's okay, kind of thing, and so when I went back to listen to the audio of all the incidents, it was both of them were just going at it, like having loud sex, right? And and they had the hip hop music blaring, and you just hear like someone was getting murdered in there. So props to that guy. And so, and the funny part is the girl came over. She came by the last time like in a little tube top, halter top, and little tight little shorts, and then she was knocking, and I was like, was she complaining, or was she trying to get into the mix?
Oh,
So
jeez.
that was a that
She
was
came
a
dressed
funny
for the
incident.
party.
Yeah. Yeah, tag me in. Anyways, that was it's kind of a horror story. Stuff like that happens at those places because the walls are thin, and so
Yeah.
some people are louder than others. So that was a pretty funny horror story.
Yeah, well, and it was like, and having units where you've got hosts on either side of you, where who's running those units that are right next to yours. I just remember like there's been so many occasions where something's happening and you're like texting the other host. You're like, "Hey, your people are being noisy. Please keep it down."
We
One
even
guest,
have
no
one
idea.
in that building. We have the one we have unit 107 and 207, so there are one on top of the other. So it happened that we had guests saying, "Hey, the people upstairs are very loud," and we had to go and text the other people saying, "Hey, the people downstairs saying that you're being loud," and those things happen. And over there, another short horror story. We had a party, someone trying to throw a 50-year birthday party, sneaking 15 people at a studio apartment.
No, no.
Oh my god.
And this one, I was very pissed to Steve, and at that time my wife was helping us with the communication and everything, because this person sends a message, right? And she's like, "Hey, I'm trying to throw a celebration dinner for my husband. It's his 50-year birthday, so it's gonna be me, him, and just a couple of friends coming over." And it's like, I answer right away. It was an instant booking. "No, that's not possible. It's a small apartment. You can't do that." And I contacted Airbnb. They canceled the reservation because they wanted to throw a party, no penalty, anything. And she comes back and sends another booking request and says, "Please let me book. We're not going to do a party over there. We're just going to go eat somewhere else. We just want to spend the night over there." And, I went with my gut feeling. I was like, no. No, right away. And they were like, "No, I mean, she said she's not going to do it there." I was like, "She's going to do it." "No, no, no, she's not gonna do it there. Yeah, let her book." I mean, it was this a slow month or something like that. So we accept the booking. I remember I was driving back from another birthday party, and I started getting messages from the team sending pictures of the Ring camera and people coming in. It was like 15 people or more, and kids and everything. Tried to call the phone number on the reservation. It was a dead phone number, so I didn't exist on a disconnected number. So just went ahead. I had some funny stories by talking to people through the Ring camera. So I just activated the Ring camera, start like, "Hey, you over there, hey, I'm calling the cops, hey." And they start looking, what's going on, who's talking to me, God. And yeah, someone came in and was like, "Hey man, you can't put 15 people in a studio apartment." And it was like the guy, the husband was like, "Hey, I had no idea. I thought my wife said that it was okay." It's like, "No, this is not okay. You gotta leave in 1 hour, in 20 minutes, I'm calling the cops." And they left right away.
You got
But
lucky that they left.
yeah, I know, but when we found it, I mean, having traffic of 15 people in a studio apartment, it took some work to get it, into shape again.
We say that all the time.
Believe
Those
it.
Ring doorbells come in handy.
Oh yeah.
We
Oh,
used to, when we were putting together Steven's units, if we were ever near one that he also had, we would like mess with him through the camera. We would like make faces and talk to Steven through the camera when we were putting together his units.
Oh well,
remember
you know, with the Ring camera once, I remember Ethan, you know, just jokingly, no, Ethan's partner giving the finger to the camera, like joking to Ethan. And having one of my team members super scared, like, hey, this guy is giving the finger to the camera. I don't know what to do. She's like, no, that's a joke. It's like his friends.
That's the owner.
Yeah, exactly.
And he is a danger. Kick him out.
Call the cops.
Honestly, yeah, I just feel like, you know, every time we bring anyone on this podcast, we always ask them for horror stories, and typically we're bringing on hosts who are either managing themselves or only have a couple of properties that they're managing. And so with you guys in particular, I mean, you see the worst of the worst because you get so much exposure to what's going on behind the scenes. So I can only imagine what that looks like on a weekly basis.
Oh, we got.
Oh, yeah,
I had to
know,
send you some
yeah.
videos. I forgot to send you some videos. So we have the. You know, I think we can't even describe it here, but so topless
Sometimes-
people. You know, just things
Oh,
that
yeah.
surprising that.
He said topless people. He didn't say topless woman. He said topless people.
Yeah, it's just,
That's a whole different story.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
no, for I think we can do one episode only about Ring cameras, but we want to respect people's privacy. So.
Yeah. Well, it's like, for example, I just installed the Ring cameras on the lake house in Michigan, and you know, I posted a video because I was like, look, I really need a Ring camera facing that hot tub. Like, you know, insurance wants it, like everyone is suggesting that I need it, but all of, like, whenever I post anything about it online, it's like everyone who's a guest is like, no, that would make me uncomfortable, I would hate it, like, you know, just a terrible review all the way around. And I'm like, I don't think I can afford not to. But also, like, I'm never looking at that camera unless we have a problem, because I don't even want to see what's going on. It's gonna
Yeah,
be too much.
we don't tell you half what goes on at your places. Don't worry.
Thank God. I don't want to know.
Just hide the dead body. She'll never know.
Yeah. Sarah's gonna be the issue on this one. We've got the situation handled. Just bury it. Well, we have some questions for you guys to kind of dig in. So I will let Emily kick off our first question that we have for you.
Yes. So, as you said, you guys have been doing, well, I mean, you've been in Airbnb longer, but you've been doing Argest Rentals for a year. So, what would you say are the biggest challenges as you guys are scaling Argest?
Everything.
I believe it.
I hear that.
You know, that's funny because, like, you know, we got up from you kept sending us more clients and more units. We're like, okay, bring it on. Then we're like, holy shit, we haven't even, you know, we started the business. We had our, you know, our first ones, and me and Fed merged and got the cowboy. Y'all did the cowboy for us, and that was phenomenal. Still kicks ass for us. The Urban Cowboy in Fort Worth. Y'all got to go rent it. So we got that one up and running, and then, you know, shortly after that is when, you know, you had your incident with the previous thing and then so you needed a new thing, you know, to manage y'all. And so and just like in passing, I had mentioned about me and Fed wanted to do the management company, and you said, hey, y'all got that management company yet? Okay, yeah, sure. And you just started adding your units, and we still hadn't built out our, you know, all of our systems yet. And that's the thing. But so we had to learn on the go, you know, and then as we're learning and as we're building the systems, mostly Fed, you know, he's a big systems guy. We start getting more and more, you're sending more and more units at us. And we got to a point where we had around 20, you know, towards the end of, you know, around September, October. And we're like, man, we need to stop. No more units. We need to just figure this out and get these systems in place and get the right VAs in place, because we had the wrong one. That's the thing. You hire the wrong people, it makes you go backwards. You go backwards like 100 yards, you know? And so that's the thing, hiring and figuring out the systems and getting all the, Fed likes to say, the DNA for every property. And we got overwhelmed. So about at 20, we kind of like, no more, let's just figure this out. And then we kind of, things settled down some. We got the right people in place. And then all of a sudden we went from 20 to like 40 really quickly. And then we weren't scared to take any more on. But it's just that, getting the correct systems and the correct people in place while you're trying to scale is really difficult, if not impossible. So Fede can speak on that too.
Yeah, and I was listening to previous episodes and started explaining the automation part. And the automation is going to help you to cover the basics, so you can really scale with the automation on the basic communication, the turnovers, making sure the turnovers are scheduled, the pricing. You can automate part of the pricing. You still need to stay on top. So to scale, that's a part. You can automate one part, but there's another part that you need to stay on top. Why? Because you're gonna have things going wrong at the worst times. That's usually, like I always say, if a keypad is gonna stop working, it's not gonna be on a Monday morning when you can send someone. It's gonna be on a Saturday at 2 a.m. And seriously, every time we have problems with the locks, it comes on a weekend during the late hours. You're gonna have people trying to sneak pets, extra people on the places. So that's why we have the Ring cameras. But you need to have someone monitoring the cameras on a Saturday at 2 a.m. Right? And you need your teams. You may have your prices automated on price labs as we do, but still there may be things you need to start tweaking because the markets are changing constantly. And people are adding more Airbnbs in some areas, and you gotta get more competition. You need to have Airbnb is gonna change their descriptions on the listings. So you need to go and, when you think you have all your amenities described and everything described, Airbnb may add new check boxes. I need to go inside and make sure you keep everything updated. So, just staying on top of everything that is running this giant hotel. I always say this. This is like running a hotel that's spread out in the city. It's not even in the same building. So the operation is giant, because you need to make sure you're coordinating maintenance, you are coordinating cleaners, and you want to work on a way that you're not just fixing problems, you're not being reactive, you're being proactive and making sure you're doing maintenance before things get broken. Let me give you an example. We had a dryer going off in one of the apartments, and then we realized that the cleaners were not cleaning the filters on the dryers, which we assumed they were doing, right? So now we need a system in place for the 40 properties where they need to be cleaning that. So yeah, I think those were the biggest learning lessons and pains when growing. And of course, every time we double or property number from 10 to 20 to 20 to 40, there are new challenges coming.
Yeah, I believe it. And I think one thing that you guys have particularly done super well in comparison to other managements that I have experienced is that you're proactive about it. Like, just like you said, it's like, if a problem happens one time, not only is the solution happening immediately, like it's getting handled instantly, but then there's that follow-up of like, okay, how do we prevent this from happening again? And it's all those like very small details that are so important for guest experiences, because that's what takes your property from a regular property to a superhost status. And so I think that you talk about how difficult it's been to scale, and being on the other side of it as someone who uses you as a management company, like I have never felt that scale happening, that pain, right? That like growing pains that I felt with other companies. So applaud you guys for that. And also just knowing that you can like slow down for a minute to then scale exponentially and scale well, scale stable. The music to my ears, So as like, if there are any other people out there who are listening to this specifically on the management front, because so many people get involved with Airbnb in the co-hosting front, particularly, and they don't know what they're doing. And, it's really rare, in my opinion, to find a management company that is scaling well. That's probably the most valuable piece of advice, is know when to pause, build your systems out, and then continue scaling.
Yeah, I think that what you said, being like proactive instead of reactive. I don't think everybody has that same mindset, and that's like the mindset that you should have, is because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just sit here, and if a problem comes up, then like I'll just deal with it, instead of like getting ahead of the problems. And so that's just a really good way to go about that, instead of having to scramble every time something happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because and when you say that, because and doing this business or any business really, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so you can try to be as proactive as you can, but something always going to come up that's like, oh crap, we didn't even think about that, you know. So, but every time, you know, we document, and then we add it to the SOPs, you know, and try to teach our VAs. And like for example, if we have a new unit coming up, Feta will have me go over there, or our cleaners or whatever, do hours hours of video, photos everywhere, every nook and cranny, how to use the remote control, how to turn on and off the shower. It's simple things that people most people know, but we get some guests that don't know, you
You
know.
were surprised.
Right.
So exactly.
I'm not surprised anymore.
And so yeah, I mean, every little thing you could think of, and how to flush a toilet, whatever it is, man. And so he has me doing all this tedious stuff and documenting everything, and still something will come up that we didn't even think about, like someone didn't know how to turn on the garbage disposal, and it's like,
And you know,
Feta freaks out. Hey man, where's the switch to the garbage disposal? What are you talking about, man? They can't find the switch to it should be by the sink. He's like,
exactly,
you should
but
document that. You need to document that for me. I was like,
Yeah.
but here's the part when you're doing management for the people. Like our goal, and this is how we explain our company. How our mission is to provide a 5-star experience to our guests, and provide peace of mind to the owners, to our clients. All right. So if I have someone on a Friday night asking me where the disposal switch is, I don't want to bother Sarah that is probably having dinner at 10 p.m. on a Friday, because that's why she hired us, right? But you know, people are asking you those dumb questions that maybe you don't remember because you have so many properties. Like, I can't remember everything. I can remember exactly like the middle switch, what it does. But I don't want to bother my client, because that's why they're hiring us. So that's why we try to have as much documentation as possible. And I will say, there's nothing more frustrating than being asked a dumb question but don't having the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it.
It's super frustrating. So that's why we try to document as much as we can. We try to go through the videos, to the cleaner pictures, and try to spot that, and you know, utilize every resource that we have before having to actually go and ask the owner, hey, can you clarify this for me?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I just feel like in general, you know, the conversation around management companies, when you're talking about it with people who have a lot of experience, the overarching thing is like, no, it's pretty easy to manage yourself. It's not going to take you all that much time. And I'm like, I argue from the complete opposite corner. I'm like, no, you just haven't found a management company that's willing to give you that level of value. Like, you know, especially with all of these systems that you can use, you can, sure, if you're a property manager or you're a host and you want to kind of set it up and forget it, or have this idea that it is passive income without a management company, I'm like, you're insane. Like, yes, you could automate 90% of the typical conversations, but it's always going to need maintenance. It's always going to need attention. You are in the game of customer service. Like, it is hospitality. Like, there is no such thing as it being passive income unless you have a management company, and a good management company at that, because most management companies will extend that panic mode of like, oh my gosh, I don't know if there are blinds in this unit, or I don't know if the garbage disposal switch is right next to the sink. And you're right, like whoever is the host does not want to get that call. Like, they don't want that spike in anxiety. They would rather just not know about it. So yeah, I think that that's super insightful for anyone who's, you know, getting into managing, and how important it is to prioritize both the customer who's staying at the unit, but also the host who's hiring you to do what you do. Yeah.
And the frustrating part with dealing with a not so good management company, because that, you know, I've done Airbnb out of my houses before,
Mhm.
like, you know, about 5-6 years ago, whatever, and and I thought I did a good job at it, you know, just did my own, and I was cordial to the people coming through, all that kind of stuff. I was a super host, great reviews, whatever. even with before you, even with Grandma's Furniture,
Hmm.
even with that,
Right.
I still did good. I was still a super host, and you just talk to people and form a relationship, right?
Yep.
And so when you got me into the arbitrages at that particular place, they came with management. There was no choice. I thought there was no choice. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, so they were thrust upon me, and then all of a sudden, these people are managing my arbitrages, my babies that you made so beautiful, and they're doing such a bad job, and I lose my superhost status because of it. It's because it's on my account, and I'm just frustrated. I'm like, and got these, the VAs weren't doing a good job, and they weren't, someone would come through, hey, I'm in town either for a wedding or for a funeral or whatever, and they wouldn't say anything like, cordial to them, anything, sympathizing. Oh, congratulations, you're getting married, or sorry for your loss, and it's simple things, or military, hey, thank you for our. They wouldn't say anything like that. It just whatever the script said, that's what they would do, this and that, if they
Yeah.
responded at all. And it was just like I got to witness what a bad management company looks like, which inspired me and Federico, because he saw it too. When I brought him into the mix, he saw what they were doing and how
Yeah.
they were treating the client, not only the guests, but also their clients. I mean, it's like
Hmm.
you couldn't even talk to the higher ups in the company unless I don't know. It was just a bad experience all year, all you know all the way around, and
Yeah.
Federico saw it, so we made sure that that's not the type of company we're going to be. And we've gone through a lot of VAs that weren't upholding our standards, because I mean it's a process. But we always kept that in mind, just like you mentioned earlier, the small touches, the relationships, making the guests feel good and comfortable, and most of that, I mean, the 5-star reviews will start coming, you get your super host status, and then everything starts going up.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely seems like, with the management game, I mean, the technology is necessary, right? You have to set up these systems to handle 90% of the light carry, but those soft skills are what sets you apart in the management game.
And I know you talk about the horror stories, the Airbnb horror stories on the host side, but as management, I can tell you what are our horror stories, our biggest fears.
Hmm.
And our biggest fears is having a guest step into a property that haven't been cleaned, or that is missing something. And it happened very, very, very few times. Like once or twice, I've had something like a guest stepping into a property that's not ready for hosting. And of course,
Hmm.
we developed certain standard operating procedures to avoid that from ever happening again. So when you're doing management, you have to have a backup system for your backup system and a backup system for that. So plan
Hmm.
A, B, and C. Um, because even though we have all the cleanings automatically scheduled, sometimes something may happen that for some reason the cleaners did not saw that they have an additional job because it was a last minute thing, whatever it was, and you shoot a message, and they didn't see it. But of course, we have a way to resolve very, very, very quickly. But those are things that happen. So we need,
Yeah.
for example, we have our system to schedule the cleanings, but we also send them a message the day before, and if anything changes in the morning, we send another message saying these are your uh, jobs for the day,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And we have them to check once they finish cleaning a place in two different systems, and send the pictures and checking the cameras to make sure they left. So you need to stay on top if you want to make sure nothing goes wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's a whole machine. I mean, you're right. When you talk about like you think about the level of coordination that a hotel has to go through to make sure that every single guest is taken care of at that scale, and you're doing that across the US, right? It's like not even just DFW, it's across the US. Like that level of coordination is insane. So, I mean, people who are getting into co-hosting, I feel like, it's oftentimes glamorized as like, oh, it's the free way to get involved in Airbnb, and like it's not that difficult, and it's not talked about enough how, and I feel like that's why there's so many bad management companies, because so many people get into it and think they can like set it up and forget it. It's just not
Mm,
the case in any way, shape, or form.
mm-mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the hospitality part is so important, the customer service
Yeah.
part, because you get to build these relationships with your guests. And when you think about I always tell my teams, like, whenever you're having a conversation, sometimes you're picking a conversation that's someone that booked 3 weeks ago, that someone else managed the initial conversation. You don't remember what's going on. Scroll up, look at the first message. Why? What is the reason that they're visiting us? Why are they staying with us? Are they coming for a funeral, an event, whatever it is? And try to use that throughout the entire conversation, and that's gonna make the difference. And that's gonna be the difference between oh yeah, I found something a little bit dirty, I'm gonna leave a 4-star review because the cleaners miss a really little small spot, to, hey, yeah, they were amazing, I'm gonna leave a 5-star review.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was like, the fish situation with the 407 unit the other day. And like, one, I went back and read that conversation and how you guys handled it. And two, it just made, in my opinion, it made it so obvious that it was the guest who was there that did that left the fish. It was like I was reading your all's communication back and forth, and I'm like, these, like, your VAs, whoever is on the other end of that conversation responding to this person who is just being angry, and rightly so at the time, right? Like, when we didn't know really what was happening, like, of course she's upset that there's a horrible smell in the property, but like, it just, the level of communication that happened to try and resolve it, try and appease her, try and give her 18 different solutions, and she gets to choose how she handles it with other properties and multiple cleanings, and just like the over the top customer service. I'm like, I wouldn't have done that for my own property. I'm like, this is why I'm willing to hire it out, because it's things that I wouldn't do myself. I know myself well enough to know that that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah, I think people forget that. I think that people, like, especially online, Airbnb is shown as like real estate, right? Like, that's like the main thing that people talk about is putting your money into real estate, but they don't think about it as hospitality as well. And that's such a huge part of it that I think, like, is just not the forefront of why people get into Airbnb,
Yeah. Yeah. And if you find a good management company, it's like, people will always argue, they're like, look, you're giving away so much of your profit if you hire a management company. But there are also so many people who are, used to long-term rentals where, they have one communication a month unless something goes wrong with their house, and that's it. And that's what they're used to. And they see this like giant increase in overall potential profitability by switching it to a short-term rental. And so they'll dive into it and then be like floored with how much it takes to run a property. Like, even if you automate it. So I'm like, look, even if you are giving away a good chunk of your overall profit to a management company, that frees you up so much time to go and build more if you want to, or spend it with your family, or like whatever you want to do. In my opinion, you're still making more than you would in a long-term rental setting. You may be making less than you could possibly make, but it's this beautiful balance of making more than long-term rentals and also having the freedom of time and actual passive income.
And a management company, if it's a good management company, it's gonna help you increase your profits as well. So,
oh yeah,
if you're giving away part of your profits, but those profits are also increasing. Whereas if you are managing your Airbnb from your phone, I hear of people who they've been managing themselves and they only look at their listings and their information on the phone. They don't even have access to all the capabilities that the app platform have on the desktop app. They don't check, they don't have pricing rules. They just set a price and it's like, okay, let's see where it goes. So they just connect dynamic pricing just to put the prices a little bit higher if there's more demand. But there are so many things that can be done. The benefit of having a management company is that the entire day we're working on this. So our entire day is going to be putting our eyes in your property and making sure everything's going well, that the occupancy is what we expect to be compared to what's going on in the market, that if there are any opportunities to upsell, we're going to take those opportunities, that if something went wrong in your apartment, you're going to get paid by Airbnb or the insurance policy of your insurance company to whatever you need to get paid for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we saw that, like, I didn't know I had a bad management company. It was the first management company that, helped me. And I was like, okay, maybe this is normal, right? Like, what do I know? You don't know what you don't know. And to have switched it, I switched it from June to July of last year. And June, I think my profit was like, what, $4,000 after I had paid the management company across those 4 properties. And then I switched to you in July, which granted July is our best month, but regardless, it went from 4,000 to 7,000 in 1 month. And I was like, even with it being the most profitable month of the year, like to have an almost double in overall profit, like, oh, I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing for the last year of my life?
I know. I remember the challenges. Like when we took over, there were two challenges for me. One was because we're also managing your parents' property, and that is from all our portfolios the one that people love the most. The decoration, the job you did over there is amazing, and people just love that place.
They do.
And it's like I can't believe this place is not making money. I mean, it was barely getting booked. It was barely getting occupancy. Maybe one night on the weekends, like only Saturdays, which is the biggest mistake you can make. It's like we need to turn this around. We need to flip this situation, and that was one. And we've seen some amazing returns in that property. And the other one was the account that, when you get started on Airbnb and you get a fresh new account, turning that into a superhost is not that difficult. If you don't screw up, if you do things right and you get mostly 5-star reviews on one 4-star review, you don't cancel any reservations and you are consistent, you're gonna get a superhost status. But when you come from a streak of a lot of 1-star reviews, flipping that situation, that means that you need to factor 5-star reviews to 1-star reviews to get to a superhost status. So it's more challenging. So that was my goal for 2021 was, okay, by the end of the year, we need to have Sarah account being again a superhost. And we did it. And it was a lot of work and making sure, following up with every guest, making sure they leave a good review. If they don't leave a good review, okay, or if they had any issue, how we can resolve that. But that superhost status is not just, having the tag, yeah, you are superhost. It's exposure you get when you are in the results. So that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, it immediately makes everything more profitable. So, yeah, absolutely. And I just, it was like when I decided to hand my properties to a management company, I just, I was assuming that like, okay, if they could do 80% of what I could do on my own, everybody's like, okay, if you can find someone who can do it 80% of the way that you can, then that's a good hire. And I was like, okay, then what is 80%, right? And I was going into it with that mentality. And so when I lost superhost status, I'm like, well, maybe this is 80%, right? And now looking back, I'm like, no, if you're hiring a management company that's an expert in something you're not an expert in, it shouldn't be 80% of what you can do. It should be 150% of what you can do because they do it all day long. I don't do it all day long. I don't know how to use Airbnb and the platform and the desktop version and all the systems that you guys have set up. Like that's not my area of expertise. So that was such a big lesson for me to learn at the beginning. And I just have seen so many people do the exact same thing where they're like, look, I'm not getting any profit. And I'm like, well, do you have a management company? And they're like, yes. And we'll start talking about it. And I'm like, your first problem is that your management company is trash. Like, let's start there, and let's get that fixed first. And then maybe we'll start seeing something. So yeah.
Those business quotes, they look good on Instagram, right? Those business quotes, but they're in real life, man, a lot of them are just bullshit because like you said, the 80% thing, and I thought about this with Fede while we were growing and hiring talent, hiring VAs, and we said, well, we can hand the messaging off to them. And yeah, they'll screw up and this and that. And then, but the first VAs we hired, we went cheap and we'll train them and we'll turn them into good VAs. And so, but they kept messing up. And I thought about that quote, the 80% quote, I've always heard that, hand it off, even though they do 80% as good as you. And as we started, we got finally, stepped up our game, paid a little bit more, get some good quality VAs, virtual assistants. And we found some that are just like, wow. As I told Fede, they're better than us, man. I said, whoever made that 80% is full of shit because why not hire someone, like you said, that does 150% better than us? Why not hire smarter people than us instead of hiring dumber people than us? It just makes sense.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That if I could go back, that's a lesson that I wish I could have just eaten faster. Like just get through it. Like, oh my gosh. Next question we have for you is when you're setting up all of these systems for the 90% of the automation of the day-to-day things, what are the pieces of technology or the systems that you've used that are most valuable for any other person looking to get into management?
Oh, I can talk about this for hours.
Don't let him talk for hours.
I'll try to make it short. So, of course, we have Hospitable. which is an amazing channel manager, but for the communication.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, we are also looking into onboarding a property management system that is more robust on the part of different channels, and that give us all their tools. But for the automation of messaging, hospitable, there's nothing that's gonna beat that, because you can set up conditionals like if this, then do this, and things like that. That is very powerful. We use Turnover BNB to schedule all of our cleanings and to find cleaners in different areas. We use Notion for our SOPs and to run or the inside of our company, to write our policies, to do our task follow-ups and management. We use an app called Jot Forms that is like Google Forms, but you can really make them as you want. You can really customize that, and we use it for cleaners. So
Okay.
what I do with that is, instead of asking them to upload pictures from their phone reel, that could be any picture, I ask them to take specific pictures that they need to take from the app with their camera. So that means that they can't upload all pictures, and they're photographing exactly what I need. And that's been
Beautiful.
helping us. For example, I noticed that we were having issues like finding something under the bed. So okay, you need to after each cleaning, you need to take a picture under the bed. What else do we use, Steve? WhatsApp for communication.
Notion.
Yeah, I was talking about Notion before.
Okay. I zoned out.
Yeah.
Have you, a quick kind of side note here, have you, in comparison, like people will compare even us behind the scenes with Superhost Labs now and trying to figure out our systems. We've had a bigger conversation about the difference between Lodgify, Hospitable, and Guesty for Hosts. And the overall consensus between Hospitable and Guesty for Hosts was that they were super comparable, but Guesty for Hosts has a better way of exporting all of the end of month numbers for the properties. And so like we currently use Hospitable as well. And so at the end of the month, we'll have, our team that's managing our investment properties, they have to like sit down, and basically they're saying that like Hospitable doesn't remove the fee for like canceled guests. So if someone comes in and books and then cancels, it doesn't like take that out of the overall equation. And so they have to go through and kind of massage it out, and it takes them like a full day at the end of the month to go through all the properties. But Guesty like produces a better final output of those numbers. Have you had that same problem with Hospitable?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the reason why we're looking to do something that is keeping Hospitable for the messaging, and we've been talking with Hopefully, and we're probably gonna onboard Hopefully. And here's the thing: Hospitable, which started as Smart B&B, it was a platform from communication. It wasn't a full property management system. So they started building that because they realized that their clients needed all the other capabilities. But for example, we were never able to connect Booking.com. And I know you had your horror story with Booking.com, but we want to use it in some properties, and we were never successful in connecting Booking.com to Hospitable. Their direct booking website, they've been promising that since June last year, and they just released something that's not really good, to be honest. So the accounting part is not very good, and they don't have a lot of API connections to different systems, like for example QuickBooks. That will be very beneficial. So that's the reason why we're looking into moving all of that part of our business to a more robust property management system, but keeping communication, which is where they beat everyone else in Hospitable. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think
Yeah, people will get hung up on like adding another fee onto their monthly expenses, and like for example with Hospitable or Price Labs or whatever else, and I'm like, guys, no. You need to set that up because it's going to cost you more money in the long run. Like, don't get so hung up on that front end number. Pay more attention to the back end number, because that's where you're making your money.
And a genius way we've discovered to pay for it is by raising our management fee to 30% on all of our clients, especially you.
Yes, that's what I wanted to hear on this podcast.
Just kidding.
But there is some secret sauce there. I mean, I tell people all the time, like a lot of people when they first get involved in Airbnb, they'll just Google property management companies and they'll see some of the big names in the game that, have 15,000 properties across 50 states and I'm like, run. Like just do yourself a favor and let's just jump over those. Like let's get past it because when you're operating at that scale, you're just not going to get the level of personalization that you'll get with somebody who's a little bit smaller. So, and someone who's more expensive. Like you get what you pay for, just like you were talking about with VAs, just like we're talking about with property management, designers. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Typically, across the board, you're going to get what you pay for. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Emily, I know you've got the next question, and we're making all of these questions really long.
Yeah, that's all right. So what would you say is in the pipeline for Argest, like 2 to 4 year goals for you guys?
That's a good question. We have been talking about especially this past year. So we went from 20 to 40 real quickly. Then we actually tickled 50 for a second because we took on these like 10 properties that Fed had found this lady that was doing a poor job management near our units in Dallas. And so he reached out to her, hey, are you looking for a good management company? Anyway, she's, yes, take them all. She just shoved them at us. Here, they're all yours now. And oh my God, they were just nightmare units. And so we were like, oh shit, we're like, it was fun for a second. Wow, we got 50 units. We made it to 50, man. This is awesome. And then we're like, oh crap, these units suck. And the lady doesn't want to pay to fix, like, there was literally a sofa on blocks. It had wooden blocks for one of the legs. I mean, we're like, you need a new sofa. You can't have people sitting on this thing. And she's like, oh no, it's fine. And she didn't want to pay a penny for anything to up. I'm like, we're paying money out of our own pockets trying to get these things where someone, we don't get sued for someone, falling on a broken chair or something. And then we're like, and she didn't want to pay it. And we're like, holy crap, man, we're actually losing money on these because we're paying to fix these, to get them right. And the only way to get our money back is to take it out of, hopefully we make them profitable. It was just a big headache. We were able to get our money back and make a little bit, but we got rid of those units right short, like that month. We can't do this. You're not going to pay to fix these up. We're over here busting our ass to manage these things. So what we discovered is like the number. I mean, all we heard is, all these forums and stuff. Oh, I have 100 units. I have 200. I don't think that's it. I don't think that's the goal. We kind of like changed our mind a little bit. We're like, man, we should just get, high quality units with high quality clients that we like to work with. It doesn't matter the amount, because I'd rather have 10 units that are making 10,000 each than 100 units, making $500 and a million headaches each, So we kind of, at that point, we recalibrated. We've turned down opportunities that were not a good fit. One of our big goals would be to buy like a small apartment complex and have it for ourselves, going with some investors and buy a small apartment complex. And then, Argest would manage all the units there. That way we'd have total control in the place. So no parties would go on. We'd have strict controls in place and maybe even someone on site. So that's one of our big goals in the next couple of years. So I don't know if anyone wants to speak on that.
No, yeah, I think you covered it. It's like we want to keep growing and enjoying this process. We don't want this to become something painful, which at some point, like with this experience taking over these 10 properties that were horrible, it was like, why are we doing this? And we did it for a month, and we say, hey, we're out of here. And she was like, no, please, I need your help because you're doing such an amazing job. It's like, yeah, but you need to pay.
Right? You need to pay us some money.
It was
we're the
like,
best management company ever. We pay for everything.
Yeah, we were playing musical chairs with the property. So it was like one person checking in a place is like, hey, okay, here's a horror story for you. Real quick. Management went to fix something to they had a weird relationship with management in those buildings. They had like a previous relationships, and I think that's how they landed so many units as a part of a payment of some other job, something like that. So they say, hey, management said that they went to fix something at unit 208. All right, gets checked in, open the doors. The apartment is completely empty. They took out all the furniture, everything. Like a new apartment to rent. It was empty.
Been there.
Yeah, I was like, what happened here? Oh yeah, management said that they took everything to fix something. All right. Couple of I think Steve dropped. Couple of weeks, couple of days later, I mean, we blocked the calendar. It's like, yeah, everything's back. Okay, we open for bookings. Another person checks in. Hey, there's no furniture, and like 3 times like that. It's like I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, well, and it's like after they have that experience, it's like, how do you backtrack from that, right? How am I going to earn a 5-star review after someone has walked into an empty apartment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and it's like when you're working, I mean, one, not all business is good business. Not all money is good money, right? So I think that, these 10 people or these 10 properties are kind of proving that. And we've learned that over and over again as well. But two, like if you don't have hosts who are willing to provide a quality experience as well, like you can't be fighting that battle on your own. Like you're getting into business with someone when you're hiring them as a property management company, and if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. So if they're not willing to like provide the level of experience on the furniture front and the property front that you guys are willing to provide on the hospitality front, then it doesn't make sense. You can't have 5-star hospitality at a 1-star place. It just it doesn't jive.
Yeah.
You can really ruin someone's vacation. I mean,
Yeah.
for real. I mean, you don't know what people are coming from. Maybe they're coming for one night for a concert. I don't know, and you screw up all the check-in process, and they don't have a place to leave their bags. They're gonna miss their appointment or something like that. And I'm dealing with guests and people in those situations. I think when people travel, people get stressed out a lot, right? You see that at the airports, you see that on the planes, and you see that with people in hotels and in Airbnbs. People are stressing out because they're out of their comfort zone. You need to understand that. So someone that maybe is a really nice person in their home may become the worst person when something goes wrong on their trip.
Yep.
So you need to understand you're gonna be dealing with those situations.
Yep, absolutely. 1000%. So as far as for you guys in the property management space, I mean, there are a gazillion property management companies. Everyone wants to be a property manager. It's glamorized as the easiest thing in the market. And there are some good management companies, right? And there are a million bad management companies. But for you guys in particular, when you're assessing your own company, what do you feel like is your biggest edge in the property management market?
That's a really good question. I'll say that we really take care of the properties as if they were our own houses, our own homes. I think we really understand that each one of our clients put so much effort and passion into their properties that we are gonna run those properties as if they were our own houses. I think we are really focused on customer service and making sure we have the right prices to maximize your opportunities. I seen, I had calls with people that they wanted to see how we do business and the possibility of working with us. And just looking at properties, I just go ahead and tell them, even if you don't choose us here, the things you need to make sure you're doing, because people are letting their calendars open to one-night bookings on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So I think we're very focused on making sure the properties are well cared, we have the best guests possible, and the guests enjoy the stay. And again, our clients have peace of mind. They're living there.
Yeah, because it can be very difficult to have a VA that you hire care for a property as much as you want them to. But I mean, I think that just goes to show that, your leadership is good at the top, because across the board, when I'm looking at communications between guests and management company, it's the same level no matter who is in charge, which was not the case with previous management companies. I'm like, which one of you? I could guess before they'd even tell me who it was on who was not saying appropriate things. I'm like, I shouldn't be able to do that,
I know, and that's part of I'm putting a lot of training. I'm making sure. Here's the thing: if you wanna do Airbnb as a passive thing, don't get into management. Don't get into management. Don't get into co-hosting. You're not the passive side of the business. If you wanna do it passive, go with Sarah and Emily. Design a beautiful place and hand it over to someone else. But make sure that someone else is not looking to have a passive income out of this business. Ours
Yeah.
is not passive. I have my phone on my hand all day, just making sure things are going well. I have my employees doing the communication, but I'm staying on top of the communication, making sure it's aligned to the type of communication we want to have. And again, I'm just making sure things are running smoothly. So again, doing management is not passive. Airbnb can be passive, but not as a co-host or management company.
Amen. Amen. Emily, you've got next question, right?
Yes, we've got one more question for you guys. I feel like you guys have a pretty unique perspective on this. So what is the Airbnb market like in Argentina versus in America?
Love that question. And so I'm setting up my house to put it in the market here as we move. Argentina right now is there's no professional hosting. Yesterday, I actually attended a call that some hosts did here to try to learn how to optimize your payments in Airbnb, because here everything works wrong in Argentina in terms of the US dollar and the currency. So basically Airbnb is going to pay you in dollars, but you're going to have a lower rate. But the thing is that I attended to this call, and I could tell that guests, hosts here are not professional. So my goal is to bring this professional hosting here, because people don't have systems. I mean, they don't use property management systems. They just do it on the Airbnb, maybe Booking.com. There are no cleaning companies catering to the short-term rental space. So you're going to find some amazing properties here, beautiful apartments, really cheap right now for how things are doing. But it's not a professional market, and I think there's some cool things to be done here, because I feel it's like how the U.S. market was maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I mean, it's cool because, like, when I tell people that, like, I have people ask me all the time about management, and I'll be like, start having a conversation about, what to look out for and what to look for. And, number one question that I get is like, okay, well, do you have to have a different property management company for every property that you have in a different location? Because I'm assuming you need boots on the ground and yada yada. And I'm like, actually, no, like, I have two guys who are kind of running the whole show, and one of them lives in Argentina. And that sentence, one of them lives in Argentina, literally every single time people are like falling out of their chair over it. They're like, how is that possible?
I know
and
that,
like,
and
well,
it's
if you
like
can figure out the systems, like it totally
that's
is
the cool
possible.
part.
It's
think
more
when
important that
are
you have someone
remote
with
and you're
a
far from the
heart for
properties,
customer service than it is for you to have
the
someone who
challenge
is
to make things work is higher, so you really need to optimize and make your systems efficient. So
Yeah.
it adds that layer of difficulty that makes things turn out even better. That's the way I feel it. Because again, the fact that I'm not there makes me send Steve and shoot a video of every corner of the property.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that maybe if you live in the same city, because Steve is in the same city, still can't answer that question if you don't have the video, right? Because you cannot go inside of the apartment which is occupied to find the answer. So I feel that it's been actually beneficial for us to have a 50% remote and far away.
Yeah, it's funny because Federico, he's such a perfectionist, right? If he was living here and we were trying to scale this thing, we wouldn't get past 10 units.
Yeah.
Because he'd be at every unit every single freaking day saying, "Oh my God, this pillow's in the wrong position. Oh my God, this doily is in the wrong spot." He'd be like that and be like, "Dude, trust the cleaners a little bit, man."
I trust him.
It's just he would now he does, but it handicaps him in a way that helps us to scale, right? And so, I mean, but if he was here, it would be a different. He came here a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to get to come check out some of the units, and he was gone all day, all night. He'd get back at 2 a.m. He was, oh man, I was on my hands and knees scrubbing these places and this and that and this and that. I'm like, dude. We're supposed to work on some high level stuff while you're here, right? and you're stuck at one unit for 8 hours doing all this stuff. I mean, it's great. That's cool. But I just couldn't imagine him being here while we scaled to this point. We wouldn't got past 10.
Yeah, you'd get caught up in the weeds, absolutely. And I mean, oh my gosh, Emily and I are guilty of that as well. We'll hyperfixate on something that's like, especially me. Emily's like trying to pull me out of it half the time. I'm like, no.
You need that balance, though. I feel like the balance is so nice. That's why it works.
Yeah, and I need to post it sometimes as well. As like Steve's like, yeah, let's do it. He shoots an email and see what happens. Like, man, think that twice, right? So that's the balance we have. It's like he answers an email. It's like, dude, you left like 4 questions unanswered. Like, come back, come on. So that's the balance that we have. I'm the perfectionist. He's like more jumping into the pool, and this.
Yeah, he's like, let me see the message before you send it. I already sent it. I already sent it, man. Oh, and I know, and you know, I'm getting better at it. But at the same point, I know if I send it to him, he's gonna pick it apart and this and that and this and that. And I'm like, sometimes I just gotta send it.
This is a part of doing business as partners. I know you guys talk about that a lot. It's
yeah,
absolutely.
But I mean, that's what makes the wheels turn. You know, like if either of us didn't have each other, we would be running a real crappy show. And probably same for y'all. It requires, you know, one, it's nice to have someone to keep you company. Because entrepreneurship in general can get so lonely, but 2, to have someone who's like kind of opposite of you to double check on any front, whether you need someone who's a little more, you know, risky and fast paced, or you need someone who's more detail oriented. Those things are necessary to build something that's sustainable. So yeah, what you guys have built is beautiful. What you guys are continuing to build is beautiful. I'm just happy that we get to be a part of it.
Yes.
Hey, we owe our start to you. I mean, big time.
Well, I could say
You lit
the
a
same
fire
to
under
y'all.
us.
I tell you what, that Live, Let, Thrive podcast was my Bible at the beginning. So, well, we are actually super late for a team meeting, but that's okay. So they're used to it.
Yes.
But thank you guys so much for coming on this podcast. There is so many gems in here for people who are either looking for a management company or people who are considering starting a management company, because I feel like that is the fastest growing portion of Airbnb right now, is people offering quality management, and you guys do a great job at it. So for our listeners, why don't you take a second to plug all of your social channels and websites and things like that? Tell them where we can find you.
Go to argestrentals.com. ARGEST. Argest is the largest. Rentals.com. Argestrentals.com. You can message us there. We'll respond there. I guess we're on all the TikToks. I don't know. Are we on TikTok? I don't know. We're on all.
Yeah,
that
we're.
stuff. But Feda knows all that.
Instagram.
Are we at Argest Rentals?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what our Instagram is? At Argest Rentals.
Yes.
Okay, and you can reach me or Federico there, and we'd be happy to give some free advice. You know, you don't have to buy nothing from us. We love talking to people. I have the podcast, you know, Live, Let, Thrive podcast, and it's all about Airbnb and stuff. You know what we're doing. Go check out Sarah's episode. She killed it on there. You know, her little baby face, humble beginnings. Now she's all disgruntled.
You're not wrong.
But yeah, liveletthrive.com, liveletthrive@gmail.com. Fede, you got something to plug?
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, we just love chatting about Airbnb and short-term rentals. So even if you just want to, you know, do a 30-minute call and talk about your place and what can be improved and everything, just send us a message. We'll be happy to do so.
Beautiful.
Be careful. Fede will pick it apart.
People need that.
Yeah.
That could be an additional service by itself. Like, people, if they want to manage themselves, they could like hire you for a minute and be like, please optimize this for an hour. People need your help. But beautiful. We will tag everything in the situation below the YouTube video. Yeah. So people will be able to click on that to go to your website and check you guys out. But thank you guys so much again for coming on and chatting all things hosting with us.
Yes.
Hope you like the theme song.
Our theme song for this episode came from Steven.
I mean, it's been like 10 minutes here at work, so I should do some work here while I'm here. Whatever.
We're going to use that as our intro for this episode. So if you like the intro song, just know credit goes to Steven.
Yes.
Steven and coworker.
Steven Steven and coworker.
Yes.
Vincent.
Well, thank you guys again.
Thank
We will wrap
you.
up here. And for all of our listeners, Emily, why don't you go ahead and plug all of our socials as well?
Yes, I always mess this up. Okay, you can find us at superhostlabs.com on every social platform pretty much at superhostlabs. And you can find me and Sarah directly at the Carwells.
Beautiful. All right. Well, Steven and Federico, it's been a pleasure. I'll probably talk to you right after this. Thanks again for
Thank you,
coming
guys.
on. And thank you to our listeners for following along.
All right, thanks, guys.
Peace out.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.